All right, folks, happy hump day here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. And of course, this is a staple for all of you. Monday through Friday, we are here. We went post conference media days all the way through the national championship game. We vow to you Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, to be here with all of you. We appreciate you stopping by. We've got a special guest. Ultra important because you know what? The urgency is here. It is immediate now. It is week one for most of you means everything because your team is playing in week one. But Florida State fans, Georgia Tech fans, week 0, Saturday. Let's get to it. We got George from the Renegade Report. And of course, we've got our Florida State show each and every Wednesday. Guess what, folks? Today's Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, with George, James, Chris, and myself over on the Florida State channel. We've got George checking in early today. George, what's going on, man?
Doing good, man. I'm a little blacked out with the set and everything, but if you can see, we're repping the Seminoles, man. It's week 0. You said it. Just excited. Really lucky in that way that we get another week 0 game like we had in 2022. And this year, there's no other show in town. There are no other FBS week 0 games. I believe there's 3 other smaller classifications and things like that. So FSU already on their way to Ireland. A lot of fans, thousands and thousands of fans are already over there making their rounds. So really, really excited and ready to get into it and preview this game. Hopefully Florida State comes home with a dub.
George, let's not be overlooking your longtime ACC colleague, SMU, of course, but they've got a non-power matchup, but longstanding ACC member, SMU, your big rival. Well, they're playing on Saturday, so keep your eye on SMU Saturday night because
they are.
Of course, you guys play them this year.
I totally missed that. So who are they playing?
They're playing Nevada.
Okay. Well, I misspoke there. Well,
they're like a 25-point favorite. Well, no, I took it the way that you meant it. There are no Power 5, other Power 4 games involving anybody strictly Power 4 versus Power 4 and a conference game to boot. So here we go. I posted a video yesterday, would advise everyone to check it out. I wanted to make it clean and concise in regards to, does Georgia Tech have a path to victory? So there is where I was headed on that. Folks, check out the video. I'm sure we'll cover some of that ground here. Anything going on with FSU this week? Anything that you've gathered over the last few weeks since the last time we talked to you in regards to just progress toward the season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the last 3 or 4 practices have been closed to the media. So a lot of stuff is kind of hush-hush. But I think the depth chart has came out since we did the show last week. So we got a good look at our depth chart and kind of where things are going to shake out. Look, the depth chart Mike Norvell puts out there, it's not gospel. It's not guaranteed that's exactly how the rotation is going to be. Those aren't the exact starters. It's Florida State, like a lot of other programs, they're really tight in-house. There is no injury report. So Florida State, folks, we find out about an injury when it's, season long. When it's, you're done for the year, that's when Mike Norvell will come out and talk about it. But as far as being nicked up or being day-to-day decisions are questionable for the game, that's not going to show up. So when we talk about this depth chart and who's lined out on this thing, you can know full well going into Ireland that maybe that isn't the exact guy that runs out. You might find a couple of these guys aren't ready to go. But for the most part, there have been no reports of injury, so everybody's healthy and real fired up to get into the depth chart and look at it.
So when I was looking at this matchup, and again, my intent was, okay, we all know Florida State's a large favorite. It's not anything crazy, but 11 points, something in that range, 11 to 12-point favorite. So Vegas thinks it's going to be a fairly competitive game, but nothing down to the wire. Florida State's clearly the better team. However, I'm looking for, okay, where does Georgia Tech have an opportunity here? So I look at a Georgia Tech offensive line that many people may not realize is, I see it in top 15 range based on most people's evaluation. And Florida State, obviously, the first thought that most people that keep track of Florida State fairly well, but aren't diehard fans. Maybe they're just focused on the best teams in the country. So they track Florida State as no Braden Fisk, no Jared Verse. Okay, maybe Florida State's taking a step back up front. Georgia Tech's got a really good offensive line. They got a really good running back. Jamal Haynes gained 1,000 yards plus last year, 6 yards per carry. Maybe Georgia Tech can control the football and keep those Florida State weapons off the field.
They would like to. And yeah, they show up in a lot of projections. They had one of the best offensive line and run games in the ACC last year, without a doubt. Their issue is kind of what we've been talking about Florida State the past couple years. Their first team offensive line, if they can get lucky and all those guys can stay perfectly healthy, play together as a unit throughout the full year, I could definitely see them possibly having a top 10 to top 15 offensive lineman because they've got the size. They're 6'5" at left tackle, 6'6" at right tackle. Their interior goes 6'6", 6'4", 6'4", seniors and redshirt juniors across the board. So that's great. But where they run into trouble is their second team. And it's across the board. Their entire depth chart is loaded with true freshmen and redshirt freshmen. I mean, it's everywhere. So, kind of what we've talked about in previous, analysts of this game. I have full confidence they'll make this a game in the first half. It could be, tit for tat. Where Georgia Tech's going to run into issues when they play somebody like Florida State is when you're going to have to start rotating those bodies and the depth comes into things when you get down to the fourth quarter. I just don't know that they have the horses to keep up with Florida State. I think it's really fun. You want it to be a good game for narratives and things like that. I think Florida State fans are a little bit, scared. It's been a long time working towards this spot. It's easy to think, oh, we're going to fall back to what we were in 21 and 22. But when you look at these depth charts and kind of the depth, yeah, their top line, they should be able to move the ball and things of that nature. But once we get into the depth and start rotating, Florida State really should be able to cover that 11.5. It's a number that was 13.5, came down to 11.5. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Brent Key comes out there with some good stuff schemed up. They have some big runs, pop some explosive plays in the first half. But as we've seen with Adam Fuller and this Florida State defense throughout his tenure here, the adjustments at halftime and them kind of having to adjust to that, Florida State shutting down their game plan or being ready for all those runs that they schemed up over the summer and the early fall. I just don't see them being able to get over the hump. But that's definitely their calling card. Kind of similar to us. They're going to want to run the football. Their quarterback, Haynes King, is very mobile. So he's going to buy himself time moving around back there. He's not going to do a ton of design runs. But yeah, they're going to have to really be able to keep those guys healthy and on the field, because if anybody comes out, if they have to sub in for their left tackle or their right tackle or their center and things of that nature, they could find some big mix matches against this FSU defensive line in a hurry.
You got George here from the Renegade Report. If you're a Florida State fan, I am guessing you already know that you need to be at the Renegade Report. If you're not, you're way behind, but you know what? You're here now. That's what matters. Get to the Renegade Report. If you are just a college football fan, don't care about Florida State, but you are serious about college football and keeping up with the top teams and the top programs, you know what? Go to the Renegade Report, because it's fun for everyone to check out what George and the crew has going all the time. All right, George, I'm going to take my next shot. And again, I understand I'm sizing up a roughly top 5 to 10 team in the country versus like a top 50 or 55 team in the country. So my next shot would be, okay, well, we got one of the best play callers in college football, one of the best schemers in Mike Norvell. However, we got DJ Uyunglele, and we've got a veteran quarterback. So that should eventually be a great matchup in terms of those two guys getting together and being able to do great things. But game one, and new receivers with a new quarterback, trying to mesh, trying to create that chemistry. Plus, we're not talking about experienced receivers, talking about really talented group. But as we've discussed in the past, they're a bit of a wild card. So maybe things are just off in the pass game.
Yeah, it's very fair. Bring back Haynes King. So they've got the guy that's returning in the system. there's two ways you can look at it. You can look at it as, okay, they're comfortable. They've got the returner. Florida State's got DJU. Maybe don't have the rapport with the wide receivers, but at the same time, Mike Norvell has a pretty good idea of exactly what he's facing over there with Haynes King and Brent Key, and kind of has a good idea what they're going to try to do. So I think maybe that works into a bit of Florida State's favor. They have no idea, like they can't game plan this one wide receiver and this one running back and say, okay, when 24 is on the field and 10 is on the field, we stop them. We're going to be good, because there's so many more weapons and you're not sure where it's going to come from the wide receivers. But you make a good point as far as coming out the gate. This isn't going to be what we saw coming out the gate against LSU, I don't believe, where it's just, oh my goodness, they're passing to set up the run. They're throwing it all over the place. People were shocked. They couldn't believe, Keon Coleman, 3 touchdowns, Johnny Wilson, big plays all over the field. It's not going to be that. We're going to run to set up the pass. We talked about this a lot on our channel. We did a 20-minute video with Plant the Spear about the identity of this Florida State offense. It's going to be a locomotive. It's going to be a train on the tracks, and they're gonna pound the rock. They're going to bust it outside. They're going to throw to these running backs a lot. Basically, we have 6 deep in the running back room. All of them can catch. All of them can run. If you're not a Florida State person and you're just kind of trying to learn about this matchup, Florida State actually has 2 starters at running back in their offense. One is a running back. The other one is called the tailback. So think of your tailback as a guy like Lawrence Toafili, the MVP of the ACC championship game for Florida State last year. He comes back reprising that role. You've got Roydell Williams, who came over from Alabama, and people say, oh, you just got a backup. Well, here's a guy who was a backup at Alabama, but ran for 500 yards on a trip to a college football playoff. Whether you think they should have got in there or not, he was on his way to more carries and more yards this year. I have every thought that if he would have stuck around and been with Caleb DeBoer, he'd have been the perfect kind of guy for him, and who knows where he would have went at Alabama. Super happy to have him. Florida State fans have seen Trayshawn Ward, and then Trey Benson kind of took over for him. They shared a year, and then Trayshawn Ward transferred out. Trayshawn Ward just didn't have that top end speed. He could really read the inside of the holes, hit gaps, and go, but he would get caught. He wouldn't finish runs. Trey Benson, kind of the opposite. Not the best at reading the routes, not the best at patience, but when he hit it or he found an open hole, he was gone. You weren't catching him. You're seeing a little bit of that play out in the NFL, but he did get taken early in the draft. He's doing well out there with the Cardinals. Roydell Williams takes what they do best, both, and he puts them together. He's got an ability to get skinny, get through holes, be very patient with his runs, get through I say he phases through people's legs. It's the damnedest thing. He's got great balance, and he also has enough of that top end to break away and finish runs that maybe not quite as fast as Trey Benson. And if you're looking for a reason to really not be worried, or it's just that defense was cheeks last year. When you really get to it and you look at the depth chart and things, it's a lot of the same names, like the same exact names as last year. And behind them, a bunch of freshmen, as I said, at backup positions. So unless a bunch of true freshmen and sophomores are going to really step up for Georgia Tech, or that new coordinator works some crazy magic, it's just, I don't know how much Florida State's going to be forced to have to pass the ball, Mark.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'll back that up by saying, as I was looking at things yesterday, Georgia Tech's got a huge issue on the defensive front. So while they ran the ball as well as anybody in the ACC, 5.4 yards per carry, led the conference in rushing per game. They gave up the same on the ground, over 200 yards rushing per, 221 per game in today's game. That's a lot of rushing yardage. 5+ yards per, well over 5 yards per carry, pushing 6 yards per carry, given up by Georgia Tech. Now they added a Penn State defensive lineman, a Miami defensive lineman. And that may sound impressive. Oh, they got a Penn State defensive line. These guys didn't play. They weren't like the best defensive linemen at Penn State or Miami. I'm sure they have talent. Obviously, they're coming from 2 great programs, 2 big-time programs. But Romello Height is a good addition that they brought in from USC, 4 sacks, but he's an edge guy. He's not necessarily going to factor in or have much impact if Florida State's dominating inside the tackle. So, yeah, Florida State has a huge advantage there in terms of controlling the ball and doing everything that Georgia Tech would like to do. Now, Haynes King, really nice quarterback, threw too many picks last year, probably because he's trying to make up for a talent deficit and a lot of comeback situations. This Georgia Tech team is also interesting in that I went through all of college football last year and I counted up all the double-digit upsets. There were 18 of them, and Georgia Tech had 2. They upset North Carolina. They were an 11-point dog. And, of course, the famous Miami game, they were a 20-point dog and pulled that one off that I'm sure I know you and a lot of people got a chuckle out of against the Canes last year. They also blew a game in which they were a double-digit favorite against Northern Illinois. So they were on both sides of it. I like their program. I think they've got some nice pieces and will make some noise against the middle tier of the ACC, and it'd be a difficult out for some people. And again, Haynes King is really talented and needs to cut down on the mistakes. And he ran for over 700 yards. So he's going to have to just have a remarkable game for them to stay in it for 4 quarters. But Florida State up front, dominating with, we talked about the Georgia Tech offensive line and me looking for ways in which they could possibly win. The Florida State offensive line, because of that depth you talked about that Georgia Tech does not have, got to give Florida State a pretty significant edge. Even though that's a strength for Georgia Tech, it's a deep offensive line for FSU.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. On offense, I talked about how Georgia Tech could be right there with FSU. They could make some big plays in the first half. You don't necessarily have to have the best talent in the nation to put together an offense. You can kind of raise the sum of all those parts through good coaching and doing things right. A quarterback can raise the level of an offense, put them on their back. If Haynes King goes out there and just makes, Sports Center top 10 play after top 10 play, he can keep them in it. Defensive side of the ball is a little different. Like, you really kind of, to a certain level, you have to have the athletes on defense. They have to react. They have to be able to go get it. That's where, signing 6 blue chips in the previous 4 recruiting classes total. With one, you didn't even sign a blue chip in the entire class. That's where that starts to come into effect on defense. There are some names you mentioned, some of them, Romello Height, people know Amari Harvey, Tallahassee native who transferred from Auburn. He's probably going to be their best DB. But just not to be rude or mean or anything, just looking at these names. It's just not names, and we'll see. Like I said, some of those young players could jump up and flash. But with Florida State's brand of football and wanting to get 6 running backs involved and DJU being the size he is and everything else, I think the idea is going to be to get that defense so flustered trying to figure out what they can do to stop the run. And that's when you'll see Jaylen Brown, Malik Benson kind of over the top. And also Kyle Morlock, the tight end, who has made some strides and really, rounding into form as the number 1 tight end for FSU with some good blocking guys below him like Brian Courtney and things of that nature. And the true freshman also looking to make an impact. I put out an awesome short video on DBU as Florida State. So obviously the defensive side of the ball is loaded. Maybe the next thing we could talk about, and this is really a big blow for them. They've lost their starting kind of star tight end, who was a big part of their offense and was going to be a big comfort for Haynes King as well. So, just to emphasize the hay they need to make on offense. Not sure exactly how much that losing that tight end is, but I'm sure they can't be happy about that.
Again, it's a top, even if you're being conservative, top 15 team in the nation taking on about a top 50 to 60 team in the nation. Most people have Georgia Tech right around 10th or 11th in the ACC out of 17 teams versus the team that's going to be basically odds-on favorite with Clemson and Miami right there in the ACC. So I would say if they played 100 times, Georgia Tech wins 10 or 12. So they don't play 100 times. So the odds are heavily in Florida State's favor. But since they don't play 100 times, they only play once. Could Georgia Tech pull off an upset? Yeah, it wouldn't be the biggest upset in the history of mankind, but it's a long shot. George, did you get a chance to see this? This just came across my path here this morning. Pro Football Focus put out its college football quarterback rankings. And this is the entire Power 5, Power 4. I got to get used to saying that. Power 4. So there's 70 quarterbacks in the Power 4. I have not looked at this or anything, but they got DJ at 17.
Uli Ungalale put up a career year in his lone season at Oregon State and now will attempt to fill massive shoes in Tallahassee by replacing Jordan Travis. He's an imposing physical presence with a huge arm. He's also a very good play action passer, which should make him a seamless fit in Mike Norvell's offense. If he can further improve his accuracy and be a bit more involved in the run game, the Seminoles should compete for an ACC title, despite losing a ton of talent to the NFL. I think if you were going to do a power ranking on like draft eligibility and kind of the pro prospects of all the quarterbacks out there, I haven't done it, so maybe I'm speaking out of my behind, but I think maybe he could fall 17 in there. Maybe that's something to that nature. But I think, and kind of the thing about Georgia Tech could possibly pull an upset, there's context, and there's Mike Norvell and his track record of opening games, even when he was in Georgia Tech's position, which never been in Georgia Tech's position where you have 6 blue chips on the whole roster. That's never been Florida State, but still at a big disadvantage. You go beat number 5 UNC, you go do these things. So if it was Mario Cristobal coaching Florida State versus Georgia Tech, yeah, chance for the upset. It's a very good chance of it happening, but feeling really good about Florida State. And yeah, as far as this ranking, I think he could be down there. Maybe out of the 15, top 15 is just disrespect, but somewhere between 10 and 15 if you're talking draft prospects. But as far as production in college football and what he's going to mean for the FSU offense and what Mike Norvell will get out of him, no, I think he'll be closer to a top 10 quarterback in production in college football in 2024 for sure.
And you just kind of stole a portion of what I talked about in a video, and I can't even remember. I put so many out there, but it was basically stating that until further notice, Mario Cristobal, he can build I don't even know if he can build a program. He's a great recruiter. We'll see if he can continue to build a program. I think he was pretty much handed a pretty solid program at Oregon and a really talented roster at Miami. So we'll see. But in terms of, just to finish my thought, in terms of game preparation and game adjustments and game planning, he's the worst coach in Florida. I put him squarely at number 4, and Gus Malzahn's way ahead of him, and Mike Norvell, obviously, and even Billy Napier. And I know Billy Napier's on the hot seat, but I think he's a pretty damn good coach. He's just been met with a difficult situation.
Billy Napier, for me, like he hasn't been able to build the roster, which we thought that's what the strength people thought it was going to be like the program when he came from ULM. But like he loses his best tackles going into last year. He loses Richie Leonard to us this year, a running back to Georgia. And when you talk about portal and Florida and Miami fans have had a lot of fun with the high school recruiting rankings because Mike hasn't left them in the dust, even though the difference in success. But this is where that transfer portal stuff matters. Nobody talks about the exits. Okay, who has Florida State lost ever that was going to be a meaningful contributor, somebody they needed for their offense? Trayshawn Ward, you can say, but there's a reason he left, and we saw what that running back room was last year. He was probably going to not get near the snaps he got, and that's not what you're supposed to do as a sophomore to junior. You're supposed to get more. So he went somewhere. Went to Kansas State. Now he's at Boston College. But yeah, you can't. He's done a great job, in my opinion, Billy Napier, with the talent he's had, coaching him up, doing what he could with that offensive lineman after losing your top tackle and another top guy to USC. After losing Richie Leonard this year, I expect he'll do a pretty good job with that O-line. But they just all assumed, Florida fans, like, oh, no, we're good. We're going to upgrade. But it doesn't match. Like the good high school guys don't come right in and upgrade an O-line. And, the portal guys didn't work out. They tried to bring in Micah Maskua. He's already gone. So that's been the issue for me. He's had an issue figuring out, I don't know if it's how to deal with the top guys as the head coach. Is it like an Al Golden problem? I'm not sure, but I agree with you on the X's and O's, and it's the opposite with Cristobal. He just sticks his hands in there. And while I'm on this rant, I got to talk about Cam Ward and all the hype around it. It's like, okay, well, people talk about first year with DJU. It's the first year with Cam Ward or Cristobal, and let's compare the quarterback coaches. Who do you think is going to get the team ready to compete for a championship faster with a quarterback they've only had for 1 year? Cristobal or Norvell? I'm taking Norvell today, tomorrow, yesterday, next month, last year, forever. They both got about 75 wins. Norvell's lost 30-something games. Cristobal's about 500. He got fired from FIU. We can do the whole thing. But he just has this habit of, regardless of whether he hires a spread guy or not, of sneaking his fingers in there and being like, let's go under center, or let's just run it. Let's not even take a knee. Let's run it. Let's do this. Let's be a little let's drain some clock. Let's deflate the ball out of the air. Let's only go 60, 70 snaps instead of 90 like you really want to, Dawson. And for Cam Ward, it's going to put him in a position he's never been in. Like, he's had all these interceptions, but it's because he's throwing for 500 yards and 800 million touchdowns. What's going to happen where he's going to have a game where he goes 12 for 15 with 3 touchdowns to win the game? I don't know. I haven't seen that from him yet. Maybe Cristobal can do that, but I don't believe it. I think Napier could, but not Cristobal.
I've got predictions coming out for the season on Thursday night, and I got to say, when it comes to the national landscape, I believe Ohio State should win a national championship, but I can't figure out as to whether Will Howard's good enough to win a national championship, so I probably won't pull the trigger on them winning a national championship because I don't think the 25th best quarterback in the country can do it. I think that drops them. I think the rest of the teams probably is better than Georgia, probably, but when you've got the 25th best quarterback and you get to the playoff and you're playing a semifinal game and you're playing the top 5 quarterbacks in the nation, I think that's too much to overcome. And the reason I bring that up with Miami, I think there's a situation there where I could argue that they're too deep, might be the best in the ACC, but I have a ton of faith in Mike Norvell, and I also have issues thinking that Cam Ward is going to be able to come in and be the type quarterback that he wants to be in a Mario Cristobal type system and the clash that you just outlined. And man, I've got a lot of faith in Norvell and obviously Dabo Swinney. So my attention probably turns to trying to figure out who's going to win the championship between those
big
two.
Year for Dabo, right? I mean, a big year for Dabo. I mean, he's got to go out there and make a run at the playoffs this year to get that thing back online. He really does. I mean, he's got all his chips on. We're not touching that portal. We're doing it the same way we've always done it, even though everything is completely changed. Go back and look at recruiting rankings from when Dabo was winning the titles and recruiting those teams in 22 and 2013 and 2014. These classes aren't like they were at the top with 25, like 5 teams that have 22 to 25 blue chips. And then like, you're not even in the top 20 if you don't sign 15. Clemson was signing like 11 blue chips in top 10, with a 50% blue chip ratio. It's something I need to do an article on it. It's like slowly happened or something, because these legendary recruiting classes you talk about Clemson, they're pedestrian. They're what Florida State has got the past 2 years everybody's been crying and moaning about. There were some great names in there, and I think folks are going to find out about Florida State's 24 and 23 classes. The same thing is true, but just the ability you can sharpen that thing with the portal. Bringing guys in and bringing guys out just as important. Like, a guy isn't going to work out, for a fact. He's been there 2 years, a year, and it just doesn't mesh. He's not going to see the field. What's the point of keeping him there? There's no point in keeping him there. You get somebody in and you'll replace him with a junior or a senior who's ready to come in and play. But yeah, we're so close. I know we got a little off subject there, but yeah, can't wait for this game against Georgia Tech. Yeah, I think, we've been serious and worried about it being the first game, all the things that go in there. But as far as the Florida State fans that are watching, take a deep breath, trust your coach, trust the talent you've built up. And even if we did lose, it wouldn't be the entire end of the world. Luckily, the schedule really opens up nice for us. The first 6 weeks, Florida State's able to ease into this thing. We've got 3 bye weeks, and by the time that run really comes, you get Clemson, I think, October 5th, and then you get a run of like Notre Dame, Miami, Duke, and then Louisville, maybe something like that. I can't remember. I'm probably speaking wrong, but you get a pretty good run of games at the end of the year. You got plenty of time to get ready for that. So we're going to be fine.
And just to bounce back before we let you go on DJ, this is according to Phil Steele. So this is not a ranking of college quarterbacks. This is a ranking of college quarterbacks as they project in the NFL draft. So he's got a team of guys. Like, he's pulling from all sorts of personnel directors at the NFL level. DJ's number 21 in the country in terms of draftable quarterbacks. Of course, not playing this season yet. So things can change. And Haynes King is 43. That's where they stand again as draftable players heading to the NFL, just to provide a little bit more on DJ.
Yeah, you brought up the Will Howard. Like, obviously I'm entrenched into FSU everything, but like, is that Will Howard conversation is as loud as this DJU one about, putting the reins on what Ohio State can do this year? Because I haven't heard it that loud, and it's like, who would you take, Will Howard or DJU? It's like the same thing. Georgia Tech has Haynes King, so that's why they can win. But you just said it. DJU's 20 spots ahead of them, according to Phil Still and the NFL guys. So,
Well, that was Haynes King.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Haynes King is 20 spots behind DJU as well. So, like, but people act like Haynes King is the better quarterback in this game. That's like the national perspective.
Yeah, it kind of is. Because I think obviously Florida State's a much better team. So people are just trying to find how can Georgia Tech possibly pull off an upset. So I went to Haynes King as well. He's been playing a lot of football, and he's a fun player. He's kind of a poor man's Riley Leonard. And I'm not talking of Riley Leonard as one of the best quarterbacks, but he's probably a top 10 or 15 quarterback.
I'd flip that. Give me Haynes King. I think Riley Leonard is a poor man's Haynes King.
Okay.
We'll see how that works out this year. I think the quarterback at Tech, or the coach at Texas A&M, hell of a coach. I think he was helping that out a lot. And watching that, I think he's a tough young man, Riley Leonard. I think he's a true competitor. But especially when you saw him against FSU, his things are more like what made Tebow great, is what's pushing him, like athleticism, like willing to win, running a lot. Like his hay was made running the ball. Like as hard as you talk about a quarterback, immediately he was getting like first round projections and stuff. And then that stuff kind of cooled down because like he made his hay running the ball last year. Go watch the tape.
You got our Notre Dame buddy Will fired up with that comment about Riley Leonard. I got to tell you, here's the deal, George.
Hot take, baby.
I'm not watching Duke play every week, but I did. They were obviously much better the last 2 years, so I did see them play Florida State, and I did watch the Notre Dame game, and so I did see him play 3 or 4 times during the year. I had the same impression as you. This dude is a baller. He's a gym rat. He's a grinder. He's an athlete. He'll do whatever he needs to do. You get him on the run, he threatens the defense, whether he pulls it down but then I get my Notre Dame guy on here and he's telling me he can make all the NFL throws. And I'm like, did I see that? I didn't see him not make them, but I didn't see him make them. Like I didn't see him attempt those. I thought it was a lot of just hit the tight end, hit the back. That's what I
get yourself in trouble and then run for a first down, and then get yourself another chance and then run for a first down. Nothing wrong with it. Everything you said, those are all great things. And a couple of years from now, he could be an amazing quarterback. But we'll see. Maybe he just didn't do it because he didn't have the wide receivers that do. I just have a lot of faith in that coach over there. A lot of respect for him. So I think he's gonna. Texas A&M got lucky. I think they made a brilliant hire. Like I got the kind of respect I have towards Norvell for him. So we'll see what happens over there. And Notre Dame is in a situation where they hired within, a lot of respect for the guy. We'll see what happens. There was a lot of hype, a lot more hype about that Wake Forest quarterback, I'll say, than this second transfer. So
well, he put up
we saw how that turned out.
Obviously, he had to in that offense at Wake Forest. He and the receivers were all they had, and he put up enormous numbers. And I thought Sam Hartman was going to be a little bit better as well. But I'm on the Elko train as well. I just think it's remarkable. They had lost like 17 out of 18 ACC games when he showed up. So he's playing with the same roster, except for the true freshman that he just brought in. So he's basically playing with the same roster, and they're suddenly a 9-4 team.
They aren't supposed to beat Clemson like that. They're supposed to be in that Florida State game. That made sense. That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about with Georgia Tech. They could put an effort like we saw against Duke, where they play above their pads. They've got a quarterback playing out of his mind. But come fourth quarter, especially the last 10 minutes, that's when the top 10 teams with the depth show off. So the fact they did that to Duke, or Clemson, they weren't supposed to do that. So you say what you want about Clemson being down and things of that nature or whatever, but yeah, for Elko to come out and beat Clemson after, what'd you say, 15 or 16 games they lost before that, like unreal stuff he did. And A&M did the opposite of what they did with Jimbo Fisher. They made a good hire this time.
All right, George, appreciate you being here. Renegade Report. Hey, it's the only game this week. You might as well be an expert on it. So check out the Renegade Report. Get psyched up for basically 72 hours from now, 3 days from right now. We're leading into kickoff from Dublin at noon Eastern time, everyone. Renegade Report with George. The Florida State shows tonight on the FSU channel with George and myself as well. George, appreciate you being here, man. Good to see you.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, man.
All right. And before we get to our first caller, who's been so incredibly patient, we certainly would like to let you know that I know you're focused on football, but it's better to be focused on your fitness, on your health, people. So let's hear from our sponsor.
What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness and the online fitness training camp. Thanks for letting me pop in for a few seconds to tell you about what we got going on in training camp this month. And there's a lot happening, okay? The August program dropped just a few days ago. Everybody's getting into their August workouts, having a blast. The private group is full of discussion and chatter about people getting started, which I love to see. We're going to be doing weekly football pick'em here at the end of the month. That's when that starts. I'm going to be giving away free supplements to people who win that. I'm giving away a treadmill in September because we're doing a step count challenge as a group. All kinds of fun stuff coming. So I hope to see you there. Voice of College Football has a discount code VOICE. You can still get a discount on your first month if you want to jump in. Would love to see you there. Talk to you in training camp.
I heard treadmill, free treadmill, and I heard pick'em, football pick'em. How about that? That's something we should do here at the Voice of College Football, and we think about that every summer. And there's like 87 other things to do. All right, let's get to our first call. We got our buddy Dominic on the line. Dominic, what's going on? Thanks for being patient.
No problem, Mark. Man, college football's back this Saturday, and this should be a great game. You got Mike Norvell, who just said in a post article that he is very proud of the team throughout the offseason program. Let's just get that out of the way. And, of course, you got Brent Key for Georgia Tech. And like you said about Haynes King, like last year he just threw way too many interceptions, like you said about Haynes King. Like, if he could just limit those interceptions and limit the mistakes, and if the new Georgia Tech defense could stop the FSU solid offense, I think they got a long shot and a good chance to win. What do you think of that?
Well, I think pretty much what I put out there when we were talking to George, pretty much the same thing. If these two teams get together 100 times, I think Georgia Tech wins 10 to 15 times. So whether one of those times is going to be on Saturday is anybody's guess. Most likely it's not. However, it's not inconceivable. We counted up 18 double-digit upsets last year in college football involving power conference teams. So that's 18 out of I don't know how many games. I didn't count those. But it's a 10 or 15% shot for Georgia Tech. That's what it is. They're going to have to play their best game of the year. Florida State can play a C game and still win the game. Florida State's got to play a D game, and Georgia Tech's got to play an A- game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I heard you and George just talking about DJ Huum. His first year last year was with Oregon State, and he had a career year. Now he's coming into his second year in college with FSU. And I feel like he's going to put up maybe around the same numbers as he did last year with the Beavers, now that he's coming to the Noles.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's learned something. Anybody who's coachable, anybody who has been in the game as long as DJU and now is paired with an offensive mind like Mike Norvell should actually improve. I would hope that his statistics would get better. He completed 57% of his passes last year. I would hope that he would be in the low 60s. And again, I think his TD to pick ratio was 21-7 off the top of my head from last year. So yes. I would hope that would slightly improve just because he's playing with a better team. And he's playing with a better offensive coach, not to put down Jonathan Smith in any such way, but slightly better situation for him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Slightly better situation for DJU indeed. And like you and George talked about, Roydell Williams, he's going to be a very good addition to that FSU offensive line, in my opinion. I think he'll do great, like he did last year.
Yeah, Roydell Williams is a tremendous pickup for this team. And I am interested to see the distribution of carries starting in this first game because Lawrence Toafili's been with this program at FSU for a long, long time, and his yards per carry is always one of the best in the nation. His difficulty has been staying on the field, and he was the ACC MVP of the conference championship game. So yeah, they've got a they lose one of the best backs in the nation in Trey Benson, but that is not a concern. The running back spot for Florida State.
That's absolutely true. You got a good point there. Well, thanks for the time. I appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you, Dominic. Good to see you, man. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Our guy Dominic today came prepared. He's got the running back down, talked about DJ, talked about the two head coaches, sized them up as well. Good to hear from Dominic. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Our Wednesday schedule is as follows. Of course, you are here for the College Football Show every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we go every day for as long as you want us to. We go for as long as you want us to. I will be here for 5 or 6 hours, except for today. Today is the one exception. We've got a hard out because we've got the Ohio State Buckeyes show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So transition straight from here. One dial over on your YouTube channels. We would be the next one. Ohio State Buckeyes live 11 a.m. Eastern Time with Steve, Tony, and myself. But every other day, I am here for as long as you want me. So, of course, we'll be here on Thursday and be here on Friday. I've already lined up some excellent guests. And, of course, we want your calls to be at the forefront. And also, I'm sure once we have games on the field, I will have some kind of rant every day. I had one yesterday. I had one Monday and Tuesday, but I'm taking it easy today. We've got a shortened show. We've got Nick stopping by with a super chat here. Nick says, Mark is James Franklin's water carrier super fan. Okay. I have absolutely no idea what that means, but thank you for the contribution there, Nick. Your photo looks a little outdated in terms of relevancy, but you may want to work on that. All right. Yeah. James Franklin. I'm sure Nick has it locked and loaded in regards to where I ranked James Franklin as a head coach in college football. But thank you for that, Nick. We appreciate you stopping by. We always appreciate you being here. The Ohio State show at 11, Florida State at 6, Miami at 7. And we've got the Mountaineer Locker Room show with Frank Fear at 8 p.m. over on the West Virginia channel. And I held and restrained myself yesterday, as I pointed out, from naming West Virginia on Tuesday, not today. It's a new day, but based on their responses on Tuesday, I came very close to naming West Virginia the latest of the dumb fan base of the day recipient. But we withheld that. So West Virginia, you will not be on that dubious list, joined by Michigan, joined by Notre Dame, joined by Ohio State, joined by Miami. I really should keep an official list on this because I think there was another fan base in there at some point. There had to be an SEC fan base in there at some point on my dumb fan base of the day. So what that is, if there is some type of news or some type of something stated out there, and then I get multiple, it can't be just one dumb fan, two dumb fans, three dumb fans. It's got to be dozens that I see or respond to me that for that particular situation, concerning that particular topic, that particular headline, that has proven to be the dumb fan base of the day. Don't take it too hard. Don't be offended by it. It's not a slight on you in particular. It's just a fun thing to do. And I've taken shots at all sorts of teams that their fan bases for that particular day, or their little tiny sliver of fans that responded to me, earned that moniker for the day. Since we've got some time and nobody's calling in right now, and we've got no comments or questions coming in, then we might as well let's get this wrapped up. We're on show 18, I believe. It is finally time for me to wrap this up in regards to the show name. So we announced at the outset of this show, following the conference media days, that we would be here, rain or shine. We prefer shine. We're big into shine. The sunny guy, what are we going to name him? Our guy there. Whoa, he left me. Our guy there. Let's see. We could name him the Sunny Voice. We could call him the Sunny Voice, maybe. We could do that. You know what? We may not even get it to the show name today because we've got a call. So we will prioritize our buddy Will, who's checking in to no doubt. Let's see if Will can go through a phone call without stating the name Riley Leonard.
Well, that's what I was going to do my phone call.
Oh, okay. I just thought I'd give you a challenge.
I mean, I'll give it a shot, though. So the quarterback for the Irish this season, all they've been working on is his downfield throwing, like throwing it deep.
This Angeli guy's got to work on his downfield throwing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what they worked on over, because he got hurt in the spring, so he couldn't really run. So they were mostly working on his throwing and being able to, I mean, they're try to make him sort of like a Jaden Daniels, like be able to make the plays that he did for the Irish this season. The concern is the offensive line a bit, yes. But I'm hoping.
Did I hear this right? After they lost, was it Joe Alt, correct? And this is for the season, that his backup left the practice field. Is that true?
Charles Jagasaw, yeah, he's out for the season.
They got two guys at the same position out for the season.
Well, Joe got drafted.
Oh, Joe Alt left. Yes, yeah. Okay. But so their starting left tackle for this season, out for the season.
Yeah, 5-star recruit from the Chicago area. He was a big get.
But I thought that they had a second lineman, not necessarily out for the season, but also hurt. Maybe not. Okay. I'm not on that. That's what I heard.
I haven't been doing much research recently, but I'm pretty sure it's just the one offensive lineman that's out.
All right.
But if anyone
spread misinformation here, so okay. I was leaning heavily toward Notre Dame going down to Texas A&M and taking care of business, but I don't like to hear
I think
that.
If the defense plays their potential, they should win. But I mean, it's never a given with Notre Dame winning tough road games. So we're gonna figure it out week one.
I was thinking about putting a poll.
I'm just excited for the receivers to be much
there
better.
For a second. Okay, we're talking over each other. We had a little bit of a lag. So you're excited about the receivers?
All right. Mm-hmm. Finally got some top quality college football receivers in South Bend. Chris Mitchell, I think, is going to be – well, he's old, though, so I don't know if he'll be a first-round pick, but he's probably going to be one of the dudes. He's going to be one of the dudes for sure. Transfer from Florida International.
Okay, yeah. I'm not that concerned about what they're going to do in the NFL draft. The combination of the
I know, but I think he's going to be a difference maker on the field.
Okay, the combination of the receivers and Riley Leonard. After the comments we just got from George and the conversation we had there about Riley Leonard, what I've heard from Brian Driscoll, who we hope to have back very soon, he says that Riley Leonard can make all the throws, and that kind of went against my viewpoint and perspective of who Riley Leonard is. I am going to be locked and loaded on this Riley Leonard performance against Texas A&M. I'm going to dissect every pass. Hopefully he throws a lot of them.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun, Mark. I mean, it'll be fun if the Irish win, but it won't be fun if the Irish lose.
It should be a heck of a game
Mhm.
because that triple header on ABC is something special, and that's obviously the nightcap. But the other two games, of course, the noon game could be a blowout.
I hope
It
it's
has the
not, but
potential.
I have a feeling it might be.
Yeah, and
It's
the
if that
3:30.
Clemson offensive line can be adequate against the Georgia defensive line, which is a big ask.
Yeah, and of course, Cade Klubnik has a lot
Yeah.
to prove, and Carson Beck is generally considered the best quarterback in the nation.
I'm not okay. Is this bad? I'm not like Carson Beck was good last year, but he didn't blow me away like Bryce Young and Caleb
Yeah,
Williams did.
I agree with you, and I made a statement here recently that I took about 8 sources and I lined up all their quarterback rankings. Every one of them had Carson Beck number 1.
Mhm.
And my thought was, I really can't dispute that, but also this is not a quarterback class that is loaded with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. So I think it's a down quarterback class, and I don't know that there's anyone special out there. The Big Ten has not a lot of good quarterbacks. The Big Ten has like 5 good quarterbacks. It's a weak quarterback league. The SEC,
I mean, maybe Dylan Gabriel is maybe great. I don't know.
like if you were going to take a quarterback, you would take Dylan Gabriel.
Mhm.
I think that Drew Aller or Miller Moss could break through to be better than Dylan Gabriel.
I agree.
But he's a safe pick. And I'm trying to weigh that in terms of a national championship prediction. But the SEC, you got Connor Weigman could break through. Nico, I won't even attempt to say his last name right now. Iamali Avea, I think I got it. That's one of those names like Uyangalele that it's
I
not.
got used to DJ's name. So I'll eventually get used to Nico's.
Well, yeah, it's not difficult to say. I just forget how to say it. If I haven't said it for a month, then I'm like, how do they say? Anyway, Nico, Connor Weigman, Brady Cook's a good quarterback. But in terms of who could like really emerge as a great quarterback because they've got that kind of talent, skill set, Avery Johnson possibly at Kansas State, Jalen Daniels, of course, at Kansas.
Jalen Milroe with
State
Kalen DeBoer coaching him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I see no predictions out there for Alabama to win a national championship.
Who do you? This Miami Florida game is going to be, for me, it's a complete toss up.
Yes, I agree. I think Miami's a slightly better team,
but I think Mario can blow a game like no one else. I mean, worse than Les Miles. So, and also it's at the Swamp where they beat Tennessee in the Swamp last year.
Yeah, exactly. That was going to be the game I was going to point to. If they were good enough to beat Tennessee by 2 scores at home, and they were good enough 2 years ago with, of course, that was 2 years ago, different team, but the same caliber team to beat Utah, a team that won the Pac-12. Yeah, they can definitely win this game. And I think it's more important for them to win this game.
Very important. If Florida loses this one, I don't know. They could lose. The Central Florida game is now very losable if they lose to.
Yeah. Yeah. What a year for Florida to schedule Florida State, Miami, and UCF.
My goodness.
The schedule is incredible.
I know you have your Buckeye show, Mark, so I'll leave, but.
Yeah, we're coming up on it. Yes, we are. I lost track of time. All right, Will. Appreciate you being here, man. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, man. Last time I looked at my time here, it was 10:40. It's now 10:59. So we're off to Ohio State Live. We will see you in a minute.